The last topic, something I'm really excited about, is the Devil Wears Prada. It's slowly becoming an evolution of this brand playbook for movies that has been happening since the Barbie movie marketing. Something that I really like to talk about, how has Barbie kind of created this universe based on its IP and invited everyone to come into it, right? And it was very much collaborations and brand partnerships led, right? It was basically anyone and everyone who could use the color pink or the name Barbie to kind of jump into it. And over time, we've seen it evolve a little bit, get smarter. And this is like almost brand playbook 3.0 with Devil Wears Prada 2, right? Because this time it's not just about let's do every partnership all around, but how do we tastefully build this universe that feels like the movie's almost happening in real time, right? From the plot that involves TikTok to the type of smart collaborations that are happening with the brands who are extending the storyline into our real world, right? So, like, let's say versus having a shoe collab, right? You have Starbucks actually creating drink orders that each person would have in the movie, but also having that like having interns run it around to deliver it to those people, right? You have the cerulean, right, color kind of make its way into actual packaging in the real world. Everything has been so tastefully curated to bring the world of runway to life. Like even having like a podcast that kind of has X stylists talk about the life working behind these magazines, right? The fact that yes, there's been a lot of lead time gives this brand playbook a lot of meat to it. It's been done so tastefully well, right? There's a double-edged sword to this, though. This film is 20 years old, never really lost its cultural relevance, right? Like it almost became like predictive of the real world, right? So the fact that like Meryl Streep has been kind of joining hands on the jokes, right? You got the AI art that was kind of created for it, feels really touch with the world, but how much can you build that universe out without it feel like it's overwhelming, right? And as someone who's very excited about the way that Barbie was brought to life, it had a lot with its IP that could be very malleable. Devil Wears Prada is still feels a little bit niche, right? It might not appeal to all fashion fans, right? So it has that extra challenge of appealing to everyone who might have not seen that movie, right? Devil Wears Prada 2 campaign was very more on like, we want to reward the people who really love our movie. It's niche, but not niche. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think one of the things that, like, stood out for this one was it did
mhm,
seem more muted than, like, I mean, Barbie was, like, far-reaching, right? I mean, I remember
right.
you did the tweet, right, of, like, putting all the brand partnerships together, and, like, these ones, it just seems more, like, spread out, which I think is another, thing of, like, is there like a monoculture when it's like all these things aren't really being seen by everybody? The other thing is like how much they're tapping into that nostalgia of like, the film being around for 20 years. It's more of a
Hmm.
cult hit and moments of it became like when is the pop culture and like they're just referenced now, right? Like the cerulean bit, like everyone talks about that, right, as like
Right.
one of the seminal moments in the film. So the fact that they are using that to do these tie-ins makes sense. I do want to point out that one of the ones I don't know how much I like it in the sense of like it doesn't make sense for like the movie because Miranda Priestley would never be caught wearing Old Navy.
Yeah.
But Meryl Streep, wore an Old Navy sweatshirt on the Colbert show.
Hmm.
Um and so it's like a, wink, wink, like, we're talking about this. But then also it seems like a cash grab because it's like she would never, wear this. So like we're just tying it in to try to like, have as much brand partnerships as we can, right? On the one hand, I respect because I'm like, okay, you're referencing all the things, right? Um, but then also maybe you're doing too much. Like most of the brands that would be featured in high fashion, most people aren't gonna be able to afford, right? So Old Navy kind of gives people a little bit more access to things that are related to the movie, right? That was one of the things I liked about Barbie, where it's like it did seem like there were so many disparate products that you could participate in some way without it being like, oh, you have to buy a Barbie, you know?
Right.
That's kind of been cool to kind of, see that whole thing happen. The one thing is
Barbie's brand is very
yeah,
malleable,
yeah.
right? Like it at the base of it, it's a toy. It's got a lot of pink. You got Devil Wears Prada again, which is a little bit more like niche fashion community, which is like you can do a lot with dresses, but it really depends on its characters, right? Like even in Barbie's movie marketing, right? It didn't necessarily use the character of Barbie that much, right? Which is
Mhm,
why it was like easier to digest, right? But here you are, like the characters really carry the movie. So it's really an
mhm.
IP balance,
Right.
right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, even the Wicked one, because I remember, walking around Target and it's like you see cleaning supplies with like, the Wicked colors, the green and pink. And I'm like, this has gone too far. It's just
Yeah.
like, trying to find some form of like brand relevancy. One thing too that I'm like noticing as we're talking about, it's like Barbie, Wicked, and, Devil Wears Prada, is how female centered these films are. Women are the ones who buy products, who make the decisions for the household. Like at a time when it's so hard to get female centered movies to even be made, right? That's not where like Hollywood is focused. So it is very interesting that these are the ones that have this huge like brand marketing force behind them. And maybe that says something to Hollywood about the types of films they should be making if they know that women are out there spending all this money to participate in these worlds because they love them and have made them become as popular as they are.
I think it's like, and I think these are also like pressure tests, right? Maybe could be for because they're more female centered, right? Like they're niche centered. Like, is this playbook good enough for something that we want to bring males into, right? Like
Hmm.
something that's going to be for the more bigger universes, could be Marvel or,
Hmm.
like I know that Mattel is definitely considering something like this for Hot Wheels, right? That could be the approach to it. I was surprised that it hasn't taken off as much since Barbie or Wicked, This is like the next big one to do the whole universe approach to it, right? Why this movie, right? You could do it for any,
Well, could
sequel.
you?
I feel like it, right? Like I
Well,
wouldn't
maybe
expect it
that's
for
what I'm trying to
this.
argue, right? Like maybe
Yeah.
it's because it is more female coded. And then you also are going after women who, are the ones that are buying things, right? Whereas for male centered movies, maybe it's not. Cause I mean, we've had what, Mortal Kombat. I mean, what are other like male coded ones? I don't want to say Star Wars and like Marvel because like, those could be both. Um, but yeah, it just is
Super
interesting that
Mario, Super
yeah,
Mario
Super Mario.
Galaxy,
Yeah, Super Mario is
could
like,
have
yeah,
really
wasn't it
gone
meant for
for it.
kids, you know?
Yeah, but
Yeah, but they could have gone for it though too,
they
right? Because
could have
it's like,
gone
oh,
for it.
you
That's
you
easily
get
one that they
kids.
could have done, but they
Yeah.
didn't really lean into.
Mhm.
And they kind of did a little bit for the second movie, but it was like it's funny because that's how the movie got leaked in first place. Super Mario Galaxy was
Mm.
a lot of brand collaborations they were doing that
Mhm.
showed off the new logo. Yeah, you're right. Maybe it is.
Or maybe that they're getting to the point of like people are getting used to it and are going to turn against it because it's like, oh, Barbie already did it, Wicked did it, now Devil Wears Prada. Is that something we're going to continue doing for all movies going forward, or do we just kind of have to come up with new ideas?
Yeah, because
Mm.
what does it evolve from now? Have we reached critical point and that's it?
Mhm.
Does it come down to budget? Does it come down to like we actually have enough IP to play with? One thing that was interesting to me is that usually um, uh, brands would be openly pitching themselves and be widely accepted to get into this, but brands had to compete for this one. So maybe it is like an exclusivity factor, right? Like only certain brands were allowed to participate in this universe, right?
So Barbie, it all seemed to like fit. There were maybe a couple outliers, but definitely with Wicked, it did feel like there was a cash grab of like,
Yeah,
doing anything and everything. So I feel they did pull back with Devil Wears Prada to be a bit more curated about like what brands they're working with so that it all made sense with like the movie. So that's something to think about is like you still always have to bring it back to your brand, right? Like it can't just be, oh yeah, we're going to partner with them and then hope that that brings us sales, right? If it doesn't actually make sense for what you're trying to do.
And I think like another big lesson from this is like curation is going to be the biggest part of this, right? Like you have to be very much thoughtful about who you're going to be working with and how does it make sense, right? Because this playbook will probably reach that shelf life, right, at this point. And if you're not intentional about who you're going to be working with, and like you're going to get the backlash that Wicked had, even though it might not have been stated, to does this make sense for all audiences, like Devil Wears Prada too, right? Because it we could argue that all three movies, Barbie, Wicked, and Devil Wears Prada, did great with the female audiences. But how are you going to make this something that resonates with everyone, right? I haven't really seen anyone talk about if Barbie reached a lot of males. Devil Wears Prada 2 definitely didn't. Wicked,
I mean, it would have had to if it was a billion
opportunity.
dollars, right? Couldn't just be women.
That's true, but female, they were definitely
Yeah.
very female centric.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah. But
that's
it
a
goes to
that's
show, I guess, that men
yeah.
are willing to go to, female-centered, movies. I mean, I have seen a lot of, men. I mean, you're talking about Devil Wears Prada as like a, thing that you found interesting. Did you go watch the movie yet?
I haven't yet. No, it's on my list. I was actually gonna go rewatch the first one
Yeah.
to remind me,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it is interesting that it dropped the weekend before the Met Gala, which is happening today. Um
right?
To kind of have, like, that tie-in of, like, this is, like, the fashion weekend, right? So it is, something that can cross over to male audiences, and, should show Hollywood that they should make, more movies like this.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.